Hi, this is Jaya. In this video, we shall see the summary of House and Land, a poem by Alan Curnow. This poem reflects on the theme of displacement and alienation in the context of colonial New Zealand. Displacement means these people would have come from the place which ruled New Zealand as a colony, and alienation is here they are not able to merge with the people who have always been living here, that is with the natives. Therefore they feel that they are alienated, they are looking as they are being looked as foreigners, not as their own people. And in this poem we are introduced to Mrs. Felicity Stark, who is an old woman, and she lives in a once grand colonial estate which is surrounded by vast empty land. The estate, which was at one time a symbol of prosperity and ambition, now is empty and alien to Mrs. Stark because she does not feel that she belongs. She is considered as a belonging here. And Mrs. Stark represents the colonial settlers. That is, after getting the freedom, most of the people would have gone to their own motherland. But some people would have preferred to stay back here because they would have been born and brought up here. So she is one of such people who settled in the colony itself, but now she feels that she is not with peace in that land which she occupies. And she has lived there for a long time, but even then they look at her as a stranger and she is unable to connect with the natural world around her. Her name is Felicity Stark, and actually this is an ironic contrast because Felicity means happiness and Stark means harshness, which is the reality she is facing. And Mrs. Stark's ancestors were some of the early European settlers in New Zealand. The land which they had originally taken away from the indigenous, that is a native Maori people, that is they are the original residents of New Zealand, but now those people seem to resist the presence of these colonial people. And the grandeur of the colonial dreams have all faded away, and now what is left behind is only a sense of disillusionment. And the house in which she lives was once a symbol of wealth and stability, but now it only stands as a memory of the bygone era. And the legacy of the colonial past weighs heavily on Mrs. Stark, and she contemplates the futility of her ancestors' efforts to tame the land, because these European settlers, they came and they civilized the people there, and they are the ones who brought in a lot of change also. But she thinks that what is the use of all those efforts, because the people look at her as a foreigner and they only want them to leave the place. And despite living there for so many years, she feels as though she does not belong to that place. Therefore, she depicts the land as cold and unyielding, indifferent to human presence. And Mrs. Stark reflects on the changes that have taken place over the years, both in the landscape and in her own life. Mrs. Stark's own life is similarly marked by decline. Now she is old and isolated, with little connection to the world around her. And throughout the poem, Mrs. Stark is haunted by memories of the past. She nostalgically recalls the early days of a family settlement, but these memories are tinged with sadness and regret. Now let's read the poem. Wasn't this the site, asked the historian, of the original homestead? So he's asking a person whether this was the original place where these people from Europe came and stayed. Couldn't tell you, said the cowman. I just live here, he said, working for old Miss Wilson since the old man's been dead. And the person who's answering him is a cowman, and he says, see, I cannot tell you anything because I just live here. And I'm working for the person who is in the house, old Miss Wilson, and she is here after her husband's death. Mopping under the blue gums, the dog trailed his chain from the privy as far as the fowl house and back to the privy again. And we can find a dog which is moving around. It is chained and it is only moving within the fowl house. Fowl house is where they grow all these hen, ducks and all those. So he goes around there and back to his place again, feeling the stagnant afternoon quickened with the smell of rain. And he can find out that it is going to rain in a few moments. They sat old Miss Wilson with the pictures on the wall, the baronet uncle, mother's side, and one she called the hall. taking tea from a silver pot for fear the house might fall. And we are introduced to Miss Wilson, and on the walls we have pictures of her and her relatives. And she says that this place was once called the hall, and she serves tea for the person in a silver pot. People in the colonies, she said, can't quite understand why from Bayou to the mountains it was all father's land. And she says that these people, that is the native people, they ask her, why are you still in the colony? And they don't understand that she is staying there because she thinks that this place is her father's land. That is, this is the place where she belongs. She is all 80, said the cowman, down at the milking shed. I am leaving here next winter. Too bloody quiet here. And the cowman says that Miss Wilson is now 80 years old. And he says, even I will be leaving off the next winter because it is so very quiet. No one is talking with us. We are not able to interact with anyone. It is so quiet that I don't want to work here, how much ever I am paid. The spirit of exile, wrote the historian, is strong in the people still. And the historian who has come there notes down that the people are still strong with the spirit of exile. He reminds me rather, said Miss Wilson, of Harriet's youngest will. And here Miss Wilson, she recollects her memories of the past and she tells that to the historian. The cowman, home from the shed, went drinking with a rabbito home from the hill. And one by one, the people who worked there, they come back. The sensitive northwest afternoon collapsed and the rain came. And just like how the dog sniffed, the rain comes. The dog crept into his barrel, looking lost and lame. And even the dog feels very lonely. And once it rains, it goes back into his own barrel. But you cannot attribute to either awareness of what great gloom stands in a land of settlers with never a soul at home. And here the poem ends by saying like, we can never understand the great gloom which surrounds the settlers because there is not even one person who feels that they also belong to this land. Everyone looks at them like foreigners. And here ends the poem. If you have anything more to add on to what I've said, please write it in the comment box. Like the video, share it with your friends, and if you have not subscribed my channel, please subscribe and support. Thank you.